Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Iran emerges from the shadows to broaden the proxy war with Israel. The US is now fighting a regional war in the Middle East. Inside the breakup of Haley and Trump's partnership over her UN role. The new multipolar world mimics the US at its worst. Peace between Israelis and Palestinians remains possible. Iran emerges from the shadows to broaden the proxy war with Israel. Bloomberg. Iran has moved to the forefront of the conflict in the Middle East. Tehran has carried out attacks on an Israeli spy base in northern Iraq, ISIS in Syria, and a further strike on Pakistan. Iran has also announced air and naval drills around the Persian Gulf coast, saying they will create deterrence around sensitive facilities. The country has been under pressure since a suspected Israeli strike in Syria killed one of its top commanders and similar hits on other commanders. The US is now fighting a regional war in the Middle East. The Independent. The US is currently involved in a regional war against an alliance of Iran-backed militant groups across the Middle East, despite little acknowledgement from the Biden administration. The conflict began with Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, which the US unconditionally supported and refused to pressure Israel to end. This support fueled regional escalation, drawing in various militant groups supported by Iran, including Hezbollah, Houthi rebels, and Shia militant groups in Iraq and Syria. Attacks against U.S. interests increased across the region, with over 150 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria since October 17. The U.S. responded by sending 2 aircraft carrier strike groups to the eastern Mediterranean to deter further attacks. However, the conflict also expanded to Yemen when the Iran-backed Houthi rebels fired missiles and drones towards Israel and targeted ships in the Red Sea, disrupting global shipping. The US and its partners carried out air and missile strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, but the attacks have continued. Despite the ongoing conflict, the Biden administration has downplayed the seriousness of the situation and denied that the US is engaged in a regional war. The administration's reluctance to acknowledge the conflict may be due to domestic concerns and the fear of admitting a policy failure. However, experts warn that the US is in a regional war with no clear path to resolution. The Biden administration continues to bomb Yemen in an attempt to halt the attacks in the Red Sea, but there is skepticism about the effectiveness of this approach. Inside the breakup of Haley and Trump's partnership over her UN role. Washington Post. As President Donald Trump listened inside the Oval Office, Nikki Haley pitched a dramatic gambit to jumpstart Middle East peace talks, cutting off U.S. funding to a UN program providing critical aid to Palestinian refugees. The new multipolar world mimics the U.S. at its worst. Bloomberg. The world has entered a multipolar era where multiple nations engage in aggressive behavior that was once exclusive to the US, but this does not make it a safer place, writes Bloomberg opinion columnist Therese Raphael. Iran has launched missiles against targets in Iraq, Pakistan and Syria, while Jordan fired into Syria. The US bombed the Houthi militia in western Yemen. Russia continues its war in Ukraine and Israel is bombing Gaza and clashing with Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon. China has not yet attacked Taiwan, but this could be because of its economic weakness combined with ambiguous election results, rather than American strength, Raphael says. The U.S. has been conducting drone strikes against terrorist groups globally since the 1990s. Raphael argues that it's time to recognize that the world is now full of agents of chaos and to deal with them on their own merits rather than blaming the U.S. Peace between Israelis and Palestinians remains possible. Foreign Affairs. The recent conflict between Israel and Hamas has highlighted the failures of both sides' strategies and made a two-state solution even less likely. The article argues that a new approach is needed, one that focuses on a political horizon of independence for both Israelis and Palestinians, even if it does not look exactly like the two-state solution of old. This approach would involve granting Palestinians more autonomy in civilian affairs while addressing security concerns on both sides. It would also require a massive effort to rebuild and reconstitute Gaza under the governance of secular Palestinian actors. The article suggests that the Biden administration and other interested parties should push for this new approach, which would involve a combination of conflict management and a clear commitment to Palestinian independence. It proposes expanding Palestinian civilian control in the West Bank, excluding settlement construction, and working to counter settler violence against Palestinians. In Gaza, the focus would be on involving Arab states in the reconstruction effort and bringing in secular Palestinian voices to govern the region. While the article acknowledges that a full solution to the conflict may not be possible in the near future, it argues that aimlessly kicking the can down the road is not a reasonable strategy. Instead, the focus should be on a solution-oriented conflict management approach that aims to reduce violence and grievances on both sides. This approach would be difficult but less bloody than the alternatives and could pave the way for a more peaceful future. Now eyeing a longer haul, the U.S. reshuffles its warships in the Mediterranean. Associated Press. The U.S. Navy is reshuffling its warship deployment in the Middle East to counter possible regional conflict stemming from Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza. The USS Bataan, an amphibious warship, is leading the United States task force in the eastern Mediterranean, where it is training to shoot down missiles and drones, as well as participating in live-fire exercises in Greece. At the moment, the task force is focused on deterring Hezbollah from increasing its missile attacks against Israel, and bolstering U.S. naval presence in the Red Sea to deter the Houthi movement in Yemen from launching more attacks on shipping in that body of water. Split in Israel's war leadership breaks into the open. Financial Times. Former Israeli military chief Gadi Eisenkot has called for snap elections within months and accused the Israeli government of being untruthful about its offensive against Hamas. Eisenkot, who is a member of Israel's war cabinet, suggested that the Israeli voter needs to be returned to the polls in order to renew trust. He also stated that it would be impossible to return the hostages held by Hamas unless an agreement is reached. Eisenkot's comments contradicted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's vow to continue fighting until there was total victory over Hamas. The former military leader's words have highlighted a sharp divide in Israel's war leadership. Netanyahu and his allies reject any role for the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority in post-war Gaza. Arab states are working on an initiative to secure a ceasefire and the release of hostages as part of a broader plan that could offer Israel a normalization of relations if it agrees to irreversible steps towards the creation of a Palestinian state. U.S. presses ahead with least bad option confronting Houthis. South China Morning Post. U.S. officials have said that airstrikes against Houthi militants in Yemen will not deter the group from attacks on commercial shipping in the Red Sea. President Joe Biden said that they don't have any great expectations that this is going to succeed in deterring or degrading or defeating the Houthis. The military response has only emboldened the Houthis, with Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the group's leader, saying, "It is an honor for our people to be in such a confrontation with these evil forces." Writer Isabella Hamad. It's hard to know where we're going, but it doesn't look good. Financial Times. Author Isabella Hamad discusses the recent war between Israel and Hamas and its implications for the Middle East in an interview with the Financial Times. Hamad, a British Palestinian author, gained critical acclaim for her debut novel, The Parisian, which won numerous awards. She expresses her horror at the violence and destruction caused by the war, stating that it has shattered her optimism and made her question the future. Hamad criticizes the mainstream media for pushing the Israeli state line and silencing the Palestinian perspective. She also discusses the challenges of being an artist during times of crisis, stating that novels can change people but the process is slow and does not lend itself to quick action. Hamad feels guilty discussing her own discomfort when compared to the suffering of those in Gaza and is unsure if she will ever write about the conflict. Hamad's comments highlight the devastating impact of the recent war on both Palestinians and Israelis. She raises important questions about the role of artists during times of crisis and the power of literature to effect change. Her criticism of the media's portrayal of the conflict reflects a broader concern about bias and the need for more balanced reporting. Overall, Hamad's interview provides insight into the personal and political implications of the war and the challenges faced by those seeking to understand and address the conflict. With surprise air raids, Iran loses goodwill in Pakistan. Diplomat. Pakistan has expelled the Iranian envoy in Islamabad in response to Iran's surprise air raids in Pakistan's Balochistan province earlier this week, which has left the country feeling betrayed. The attack was allegedly targeting a militant group, however it has left the country bewildered as to why Iran carried out such an illogical and unilateral action. The surprise raids have come at a time when Iran is under increasing pressure from various quarters due to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Gaza. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your trusted observer from the 6 Degrees world. Today, we have delved into the complex and ever-evolving landscape of the Middle East. From Iran's broadening proxy war with Israel to the US's involvement in a regional conflict, tensions are escalating and new alliances are forming. But fear not, for I am here to provide you with a humorous and insightful analysis of these events. Let's start with Iran, the star of the show. They have been making quite the splash in the region, carrying out attacks in Iraq, Syria, and even Pakistan. They have also announced air and naval drills, flexing their military muscles. It seems like they are eager to show the world that they are not to be messed with. But as they say, with great power comes great responsibility, and Iran might be losing some goodwill in the process. Speaking of losing goodwill, the US seems to be embroiled in a regional war, although they are reluctant to admit it. The conflict started with Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, and now the US finds itself dealing with Iran-backed militant groups across the Middle East. It's like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole, with attacks on US forces increasing and no clear path to resolution in sight. Maybe they should try a different approach, like sending in the Avengers or offering free pizza to everyone involved. Just a thought. But let's not forget about the internal drama. The breakup between Haley and Trump over her UN role is like a soap opera playing out in the Oval Office. Nikki Haley wanted to cut off funding to Palestinian refugees, and Trump was not too pleased. It's like a bad breakup, with both parties pointing fingers and airing their grievances. Maybe they should have gone to couples therapy instead. And what about the rest of the world? It seems like everyone is getting in on the action. Russia is still at it in Ukraine, Israel is bombing Gaza and clashing with Hezbollah, and China is just waiting for the right moment to attack Taiwan, or maybe they're just waiting for the delivery guy to bring their takeout. The world has turned into a real-life version of the Hunger Games, where everyone is fighting for survival and there are no winners. But amidst all the chaos, there is still hope for peace between Israelis and Palestinians. A new approach is needed, one that focuses on independence for both sides and addresses their concerns. It won't be easy, but it's better than kicking the can down the road and hoping for the best. Maybe they could hire a professional mediator, like Dr. Phil or Oprah. They have experience dealing with difficult relationships, after all. In conclusion, the Middle East is like a never-ending roller coaster ride, full of twists, turns, and surprises. But don't worry, I'll be here to guide you through the ups and downs with my witty commentary and insightful analysis. So buckle up, grab your popcorn, and let's see where this wild ride takes us. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of these recent developments? Do you have any brilliant ideas for resolving the conflicts in the Middle East? Share your thoughts and let's have a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.